It's kind of like roadkill to me. That's what I think about when I see a turkey on the table or I see something like that. It just, people don't go salivating over roadkill.
Welcome to Breaking Stereotypes with Todd and Tootsie. Today we're joined by Judy Hisek, a vegan whose passionate stance for animal rights caused a rift with her family. Judy has since patched things up and now channels her energy into her vegan restaurant Eden, which she has owned and operated since 2018. Before we attempt to break vegan stereotypes with Judy, I'd like to remind everyone watching to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel as it helps our YouTube algorithm. All right, welcome, Judy. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, welcome. Thank you very much. What do you think the stereotypes are for veganism?
Yes. So yes, I think the stereotypes are that we're pushy people, preachy, and I would definitely agree that I was filled that stereotype when I first started. I'd like to think I'm a little bit less preachy now, but that also kind of makes me sad to think that. And I wish I would love to find a way to talk to people about it without being pushy or preachy, I guess, but still convey my message. That's why I really would recommend you guys check out or the viewers watch Earthling Ed. I think he's a really great resource for people that would want to know more about why vegans are doing the things they do. But yeah, there's definitely pushy, preachy vegans, and I don't blame them. They're passionate and caring people, and that's why they are. If you find somebody who says they're vegan or plant-based for the health aspects, they're probably not going to care what you eat. You know what I mean? And it's mostly the people that really care about the animals and don't like seeing the suffering.
Yeah. It reminds me, it sounds like a religion or something, like when you get converted and then you want to spread the gospel and save other people. Yeah. And in this case, you're trying to save the animals. Right. And that's why you're spreading the gospel, right?
Well, so think about it as like something else that would be upsetting to you, child abuse. You'd want to inform people about child abuse or if they were doing something that was abusive or something like that. It's just stuff that's brushed under the carpet with all these other businesses that are in your face about, the agricultural business. And we don't really have, a vegan business. There's not a vegan CEO that's out there to make money and making money off of it. It's I guess down to us to let people know about it and know that there's a different way to live.
Well, don't you think that might be a good start, though? Like if somebody really set up a fast food chain, for example, of all veganism, and then it ended up, being really like Chick-fil-A without the chicken.
Yes, absolutely.
Where it just kind of comes on the scene, and then all of a sudden it's this huge deal.
Yep.
There's a market out there for that, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely there is. It's just you got to find the people to do it.
Sure.
The people and the money, and I'm sure someday there's going to be.
It's coming.
Yeah,
right.
It's definitely.
Yeah.
Sure.
I was trying to think of high-profile vegans. The first one that comes to mind is Joaquin Phoenix, I was going to say, and he made the big famous Oscar speech, which was, and so, obviously as it's becoming more popular every day. So it's one of these things that's had to happen from the ground up, though, is basically what you're saying.
It's a challenge, though, because there's so many people that really believe that, just from a health perspective, that having meat in your diet is something that is so nutritional. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know. And I think the USDA has changed. Instead of saying meat it's not a pyramid anymore. I think it's a plate that's divided, and I think it just says protein now instead of meat.
Okay.
So I thought that was a pretty cool change that they made.
So why don't we just dig right into the background, learning when and why you became vegan?
Sure. Let's see. So I think in 2012 or 13 was when I bought my house. About a year or two later, we decided it'd be really fun to have pet chickens. We could have fresh eggs because we have the land for it, and we love animals. So we got some chickens from the local farm store, and I just wanted to socialize them. So I would hold them and feed them out of my hand and pet them so they'd be friendly. And as they were growing, I just, I could feel like, ooh, that's a drumstick there. Oh, I can feel the breast growing. And it just really turned me off to wanting to eat chicken. And my husband had been vegetarian when I met him. And I said, I just don't think I want to have chicken anymore. So we stopped having chicken in the house. And eventually I stopped eating pork and bacon and beef. And I was vegetarian for, a good year and a half. And then I came across this video on Facebook. It was titled "The Best Speech You'll Ever Hear," and under it was "Why Being Vegetarian Isn't Good Enough." And I was like, I'm not hurting animals, and I like good speeches, so I decided to play it. And it was by Gary Yourofsky, and it was like a slap in the face, and I felt like total crap for continuing to eat dairy and eggs. And that was in 2015.
What specifically was in the video that made you feel like crap?
I think it was lots of facts, and he was pretty aggressive he is, I think he actually doesn't like vegans. He considers himself an animal rights activist and animal liberation, which means he had been arrested for trying to free animals. He had chained himself, I think, related to circus stuff and stuff. So yes, he was vegan in that he didn't eat meat or dairy or eggs, but he was more than that. And what made me feel like crap was, I think deep down I knew that I was contributing to suffering, and I knew that I was just kind of ignoring it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you think that if you wouldn't have come in contact with that video, that it would have taken longer, or potentially you never would have gotten into it?
I think it would have taken longer. I think I still would have eventually come around to it one way or another. Mm-hmm. But it was definitely like the slap in the face. And it was pretty abrupt. I told my husband, I said, we got to stop eating dairy and eggs within, I think I mulled on it for like a day or two. And I was like, that's it. I can't do it anymore. I look at something and I see suffering that I'm contributing to. So.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind, you say slap in the face. And it's funny because that kind of gets to the stereotype a little bit already where, with vegans who are kind of militant or in your face, trying to convert people, right? Like, here, look at this. Yes. Like, this is what's going on. Yep. And that can be a huge turnoff for some people. But then for you, it literally worked in kind of changing you.
Yeah. Right. Yes. That's a great.
Well, I think the other thing, too, is that nowadays with so much information coming in from different platforms, you really almost kind of have to get hit over the head with a sledgehammer to get a message. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, there's so much information out there. If it's just softly fed to you, unfortunately, I don't think it has the same effect. So can you really, just for our viewers who may not be aware, what's the difference between vegetarianism and veganism?
Sure. So vegetarian, they don't eat any meat or fish. They shouldn't really wear leather or anything like that, I think, because that involves the killing of an animal, but directly. But I never really thought about that when I was a vegetarian, about leather and stuff like that. It was more just, to me, I think vegetarian was more a diet only, and it wasn't really a lifestyle thing for me personally. I mean, people could interpret it different ways. And vegan is when you omit all kinds of anything that's animal related. So we don't wear leather, we don't wear silk or wool, we don't eat honey, we don't do eggs or dairy, in addition to not eating the meat and fish.
Okay. So once you became vegan, did you feel compelled to then share that with others, try to convince others to, see the light and kind of change their diet as well? Like, was it pretty immediate that you were like, hey, I have to tell you what's going on?
Yes. Yeah, because anytime I saw, even dairy and eggs, I just saw suffering, and it's like, hey, you should know there's suffering involved in this, and I know you're a real kind person, and you don't want to contribute to that. And although, of course, I was probably a lot more passionate than just being like a friendly infomercial.
Mm-hmm. Who would you try to convince? Was this like family and friends or even strangers?
Or everybody you came into contact with?
I guess if there was an opportunity to talk about it, I probably would. And definitely family and friends first, because those are the people you talk to the most. I don't think I ever went up to somebody in a grocery store and said anything, although I really feel like it sometimes when I see these women or people staring at this huge case of milk, and it's like, that's for baby cows, right? And that's what's going through my head. But of course, I'm not going to say that. I'm sure there are people that do say that to people, but
to this day, you still have that thought, like if you see them, and you want to kind of tell them. Yeah. So give us an example of what maybe your pitch would be like to your family or friends. I mean, was it when they were eating and then you would say something as they're eating, or, did you try to talk to them not when they're eating? I'm just like picturing someone like taking a bite and you kind of jumping in.
Yeah, I probably did. And the funny thing is, I remember very vividly, I got baby back ribs one time. This was, I stopped eating chicken, and I think I stopped eating bacon. And I got baby back ribs with my sister somewhere, and she's like, Judy, isn't it weird that looks just like ribs? And I was like, And then I stopped eating, beef. So it has, I think, a power when you say it to somebody when they're eating.
So, yeah. And did you actually have any success stories from doing that? Or were people, what was the response you would get?
It was... People were mostly turned off by it.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't want to hear about it.
Seems like it's probably got to be one of those things where there's a lot of self-discovery, and then you kind of maybe seek people out to help you with guidance rather than it kind of being pushed upon you.
Right, and I think, it has to start with you wanting to make a change, too.
Sure.
I mean, you're not going to just go up to a hunter. I mean, there have been stories about hunters and farmers who have, decided to go do the 180 and stop what they were doing. But I think it has to start with you wanting to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So did you have a moment where you kind of you did it enough times and you got enough sort of negative reactions where you stopped, or maybe thought, okay, this is not the way, or I'm not getting through to them, or...
Yeah, there was definitely, I don't think there was a moment, but it was a gradual thing, and it was more like, this is exhausting. I'm beating my head up against a brick wall trying to get these people to understand what, what's happening. So I think it just kind of you just had a mental exhaustion and then kind of gave up for a little bit. And I don't know how I found it, but I did discover Rochester has a thriving vegan community. And, I think my husband and I were feeling kind of isolated for a while. And then we found the Rochester Vegan Facebook group, and there's RAVS, Rochester Area Vegan Society, and so we would go and see lectures. Doctors would come and talk about the health benefits of it, and animal rights active. It was mostly Rochester Area Vegan Society, I think, mostly had doctors come and talking about the health benefits of it, but we met, I'm drawing a blank now for names. Neil Barnard, he's a doctor, came. Ted Barnett is a local doctor. But, and that was kind of a little bit inspiring to find more people like us.
So instead of trying to change everyone that was in your world, you kind of expanded your circle to find more community.
Right.
Okay.
Now, were these doctors or speakers, were they mostly coming from a health perspective?
Yeah, I think most of the time, and I think that, yes, they were mostly coming from a health perspective, and then they'd be like, and by the way, it's, you're not hurting any animals if they did mention that. But I think a lot of people, it helps to have facts and stuff like that. So the doctors are really good about explaining, what happens to your arteries when you eat meat and stuff like that, and how much fat there is in a slice of cheese. And I think that really, there's different ways you can kind of reach out to people, and it's not just animal rights, like you said. There's a health aspect of it, there's the environmental aspect of it, and then there's the compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And your pitch was more the animal rights compassion way, right?
I was definitely more animal rights.
Mm-hmm. And so I know that there was a point where this became an issue within your family, right?
Yes.
So do you want to share the story of that?
Sure, I'll talk about that. My brother came over. I went to visit my dad. It must have been, I think, my nephew's birthday, and my brother brought a cake over for his son. And he politely just offered me a piece of cake, and I said, I think I was just kind of fed up with being offered non-vegan food, and I said, is it vegan? Well, no. But I don't think there's any milk in it. And I said, well, is there eggs? And he said, well, probably. And I said something like, would you drink your wife's breast milk or something like that? And he,
What if he answered yes?
I was like, well, at least she's consenting to that, at least. And I think I'll be honest, I think I even went so far as to say something about his wife's period, because that's basically what eggs are.
Wow.
And that really, upset him.
Yeah.
There was a little spat we had, and then we didn't talk for almost a year.
Wow. And so what would happen? Family gatherings, holidays? I mean, were you kind of...
If we did see each other, we just kind of stuck... We have a large family, so we just had our own corners, and I'm sure we were polite to each other. We weren't, like, staring daggers at each other, but it was just like, I don't have anything to say to you, and we would, mind our own way, or...
Mm-hmm. And how did you... Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, how did you resolve that?
Yeah.
Batavia, New York, had a little... They called it a Foodie Challenge, and they invited the community to come in and cook some of their best meals or whatever, and it gave them a chance to win an opportunity to have a really low-cost incubator restaurant that you could start up. And so my husband and I did that. I came in second place. I did a cashew cheese raviolis with like a cauliflower Alfredo, and I came in second place. The first place was a deep fried cheeseburger empanada, so I'm not,
wow.
I don't feel bad about losing to that one. And deep fried anything is amazing.
Yeah.
So that they invited the top 5 winners to join a restaurant boot camp, and then they selected me to be one of the 2 incubator spots. And in building the restaurant and going through the school, that's kind of when I think we both just kind of like dropped whatever we had been holding. And our family's really bad with conflict resolution. We just kind of pretend it doesn't happen.
Okay.
So, he just came around and was supportive.
Oh,
so it was very big of him, yes.
Yeah. Did you ever regret, or think back on, what happened and feel like you or he should have done something differently or been able to talk it out, or?
Yeah, I wish that I had the reserve, I guess. I don't know if I should say that. I like being passionate. I liked that I was passionate. In some ways, I wish I was more passionate now, but it's kind of exhausting. Mm-hmm. What is that called? It's mental compassion fatigue, I think, is something that's very common with vegans.
I believe it. Yeah.
So I don't know. I wouldn't say I wish anything different. I wish my family was more open to being vegan.
Right.
Sure.
I feel like I definitely empathize with you, because it sounds like you're always the one being put in the position of, you know what I mean? So the fight happens, and it's like, it's because of something that you're uncomfortable with versus them.
Right.
And then in order to resolve it, you probably have to be like, I'm sorry.
Right.
And, it's just, you're the one always, because you're in the minority, being put in that position.
I never really thought about that, but thank you, Tootsie.
Well, you're outnumbered, and the other thing is that, what's the reality of any of your family members, let alone all of them,
right,
making the switch.
Right.
So it's how do you navigate that, knowing that's the reality.
Right.
And so it sounds like maybe talk about that, kind of how you got to the point where you still have family gatherings, but different food for you and your husband versus the rest of the tribe.
There was definitely a time when we just decided to not go to family gatherings, unless it was something like a wedding or a high school graduation, and we'd make an appearance and be there for the guest of honor, and then just kind of peace out.
Would you eat first because you just knew there wasn't going to be something there for you?
Sometimes we would. And my family would be, my family was very supportive about making vegan dishes for us. But it was just, it didn't seem like, we weren't there because we wanted vegan food. We wanted to be there. We weren't there because we didn't want to see we didn't want to see animals on the table.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not because there wasn't something for us to eat.
So when you actually see, even though this was probably in your early 30s when you kind of converted, to late 20s.
Yeah.
For the majority of your life, you've seen that. You ended up looking at it through a different lens, and to get to the point where it was actually triggering for you.
Yeah, it's kind of like roadkill to me. That's what I think about when I see a turkey on the table or I see something like that. It just, people don't go salivating over roadkill. Why are you doing it over an animal that was healthy? And so.
Yeah, that definitely. I mean, you're turning me off from animal food right now. That's for sure. But we've talked about the book Eating Animals, and I know there was a chapter in there about Thanksgiving specifically, and about how there's this whole American tradition that revolves around basically a dead bird. And so, I mean, yeah, what is that like as a vegan?
Gosh. It was horrible the first couple Thanksgivings, and there was a stint when I was doing product tastings at Wegmans, and I'd stand there and offer people a sample of chips or something like that, and there was one or two times around Thanksgiving when it was not too far from the turkey case, and it was so I don't even know. It was just so upsetting to see people come and buy turkeys and, oh, do you have anything bigger? And it's like,
oh God,
there's I don't remember what the statistics are, but Google how many turkeys are killed for Thanksgiving every year. How many chickens are killed for the Super Bowl alone, and it's millions and millions of these animals that are raised just to be killed so you can have something that you're used to having. Why not just try something different?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And at the same time, it's like funny because talking about stereotypes, there's this, on the other side of it where people might be hesitant to invite someone vegan, right, to certain things because they're worried, like a Super Bowl party, right?
Yeah.
And like, there's going to be wings, and not wanting that conflict or that awkwardness. So, I mean, I'm sure you've been in that position with friends, not just your family. Like, what happens in those scenarios?
I guess it depends on my age of veganism. In the very early on, it was really upsetting and I couldn't tolerate it. And now especially, so Eden was part of, it was inside a brewing company. So there was technically 3 restaurants. And I think that was kind of what woke me up and almost desensitized me a little bit to having non-vegan food around. Seeing these steaks walk, the servers bringing steaks right past your face, which, and we were there for almost 4 years. And after a while, it just kind of, it's the compassion fatigue. You can't continue being upset about that when it's in your face so much. I mean, yeah, I'll go and hold up a sign, somewhere, and I wish I could be an animal liberator. I wish I had the guts to do that and break into places and take chickens out that have been mistreated and stuff. But,
do you ever feel guilty about compassion fatigue?
Yes, absolutely.
But you have to kind of balance, right? Like your own burnout and
mental health and.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the thing too, I'm wondering is, you've kind of, which I would assume most vegans were, kind of been on both ends of things as far as, a big time meat eater versus, and, that it's something that's a real commitment. I mean, you have to completely so how much do you think is, kind of ignorance about, kind of the treatment of animals versus, okay, I understand that this is the way things are, but it's so difficult to...
It's very convenient to not be vegan.
Sure.
I would say, repeat your question.
Well, I was just asking, kind of, again, it's one of those things where if somebody, do you think there's just a lot of ignorant people out there that don't understand what's going on with when it comes to mass factory farming and things of this nature, and they don't think it's that big of a deal, versus people who just have a really difficult time changing their diet around?
I think it's mostly ignorance, and I would definitely agree that I was ignorant. When I was in community college, I had to take a public speaking class, Well, you probably couldn't tell. And we did a speech. I did a speech on why you should be vegetarian. And I watched Slaughterhouse videos and gave my speech and why you should be vegetarian. I was not vegetarian at the time. And at the end, there was Q&A. And somebody asked me, "Are you vegetarian?" I said, "No, I love bacon." And that was like, it's just total like cognitive dissonance. And it's just so mainstream there's ads everywhere. There's, it's all over the place. And people are just encouraged to eat it and not think about what's going on. They don't show how, how your steak is made. They don't show how, you can Google it, how gelatin is made and chicken nuggets are made, and that's gross. And people don't want to do that, though.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. To me, I don't know that I would think it's ignorance as much as like separating it, sort of like washing our hands of it, where, we know it's going on out there, but it's kind of like,
I think
it's way done in the back for us. Yeah.
I think some people are definitely more in tune with that. Some people completely reject it. But I think that's probably the biggest sticking point is saying, I'm going to overhaul my complete lifestyle.
Yeah.
And everything that we've discussed so far that goes into it, as far as family or restaurants or friends or, all those different type of things. So,
yeah. You think habit.
So it's a big ask.
It is. Is that the reason? Is that the only thing that's holding you back, Todd?
Yeah, obviously. I think that's a big part of it, especially when you have a very limited diet like I do. So it's one of those things where, I don't know, I think it would be really difficult. Again, even though I know this is going on, I just take the position where I think that it could be done in a less harmful way.
How do you kill an animal without harming it?
Well, if you just, I guess, look at the history of how it was done before versus it's done now, I think it's already gotten better. As far as, for example, just how, like, cows are led to slaughter. Like, they used to be just kind of brought in a straight line, and then they would be dipped, like, in in water in order to kind of wash them off. And it was very distressful for them. You could hear them mooing and, and so on and so forth. And they redesigned a lot of the farms to have it very circular because that's how cows...
When they naturally,
follow the curves. And then they put steps into the water so they wouldn't slide in there. And then, there was, like, no moving. They were very soothed. And they just thought it was kind of their natural state until they got zapped. So, that's just an example of trying to make it, less, I wouldn't say harmful is not the correct word.
Stressful.
But, yeah, so stressful.
Minimize the suffering.
Minimize the suffering, yes. So kind of a middle ground approach. Because, I don't know, I think it's, and this is, me kind of pushing back a little, as far as saying we have so many people in poverty and that are hungry, and to live just off without taking all animal products off the table, I think that it would be really difficult to feed the world's population that way.
What would you say about feeding the world, like changing what we're feeding the animals that people end up killing? So let's say it's soy for cows, and changing that to crops that would be fed directly to people instead of fed to the animals and then fed to people. How would that?
Well, here's something interesting that I saw, and I talked with Tootsie a little bit about it, is that and again, I'm not sure how much you're educated about this, but when you mass farm plants, a lot of animals get killed in the process.
Yes. Of course I know that.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where, I kind of got it from a movie line. But his question was, how cute does an animal have to be before it's important?
So you're talking about like field mice and stuff like that?
Yeah, and just, field mice, frogs, snakes, like the ugly animals.
I think I love snakes and frogs and mice. So, of course, I wouldn't want them to be harmed, but those animals are being harmed right now to feed, for the crops that are being fed to animals anyways. So, at least you're cutting out some animals from the death, the death chain or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
By doing that. And going back to the animal processing that you were talking about, and how, you made it sound like it was very peaceful, like they're gently guided in and walked down steps and stuff like.
Comparatively, and I'm not saying all farms are like this. I'm saying that there's been innovations in farming.
They go to a cow spa first.
Right. They get a little massage. Although some, I'm sure, I don't know what those cows are called in Japan that they do that. But anyways, the pace that the processing plants are set at is so fast for these workers to kill and process the animals. I think it's an illusion that has been fed to people to make you feel better about them being killed. Chickens. Did you ever eat a chicken bone and it was broken? That was probably broken before the animal died. Oh. Because they're handled so roughly and so quickly and carelessly. They're products. It's like taking light bulbs off of an assembly line or something like that. They're not treated like gentle, calm, soothing. Very, very, very few places would be like that, and that's not sustainable.
Interesting. Why would you say it's not sustainable?
Because the demand right now is so high that they have to work quickly and process those animals. Oh my God, I wish I had the internet at my fingertips to see it's.
I understand what you're saying.
It's sickly how quickly they have to, and I feel bad for the slaughterhouse workers too, to have to go. I'm sure they're just desensitized to it after a while, but it's still got to weigh on you at the end of the day.
See, and these images are definitely very horrifying and distressing to me, and I think, for me, it's like I need a little Judy on my shoulder for like 2 months probably, but because I think I'm one of these people that I can definitely have the empathy in right now as we talk about it, and I'm like, oh, that's horrible, and I don't want to contribute to that, and that's awful. And then I go home and I can somehow separate it and compartmentalize it and just say, okay, but I'm going to eat these eggs because I like them and they taste good and they sustain me, and I personally have not, I've told you separately that I've tried veganism. I haven't been able to commit to it, and I haven't found a lot of the foods that, connect with me to, I don't know, make me feel like I'm being nourished. But I'm also a lazy cook, so it's like, I just feel like people would need so much help to...
because the one thing, you are a very good cook, naturally. And you've learned that, through your mom, and it's one of those things where that's something that you kind of grew up doing. And I think, again, not to sound completely negative, but it's something that I think that for you, compared to a lot of people, because you had that background, it might have been an easier switch.
Possibly. I'm sure some people have more advantages than other people, but there's programs and there's people that would love to help you. There's a 21-day jumpstart that is free, I'm pretty sure, if you want to Google that, and they give you recipes. And I think if you need a little Judy on your shoulder...
I know, I feel like it should come with a chef and a motivational coach. I mean, there should be a vegan, in a box person that comes to your house, because otherwise I just, we have talked like a month ago and I didn't make a single change.
Yeah.
And
I think the change for a lot of people, it might have to start watching some YouTube channels. There's Earthling Ed is he's a very kind person, and very factual, and he's a great person you can listen to. He has a podcast you can listen to if you like listening. You could see lots of his videos on YouTube. When I first started, I watched a lot of Bite Size Vegan. That's another YouTube channel. I'm sorry, I'm talking about other channels.
No, it's okay.
Guys.
Well, yeah. It's all a community. We'll even throw some links in because it's all part of the conversation.
All right, excellent. So I used to eat that up. Like, why is egg so bad? And she would, have a video and explain to you pretty nicely. It wasn't very judgmental and harsh. There's lots of YouTube channels you can watch for learning more and just having that, watch one a day and process it throughout the day and think about it. And then when you go to the grocery store, then you have to really put it into action. And don't buy the egg. Go buy the Just Egg. That's the vegan product. That's going to be in the vegan section. It might be in the egg section of your supermarket. Try the tofurkey, deli slices instead of getting turkey at the deli counter. There's so many vegan alternatives for people. Or you can do, the whole food plant-based diet. You don't have to eat, tofu, I think is, it's not, you don't pick it from a tofu tree, but it is processed. But, you can eat just whole foods too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what would your advice be to someone who's newly attempting to be vegan, and they, to me, that we kind of talked about the cooking, but the other thing is like, okay, now I'm going to a friend's house, or I'm going to my parents' house, and I know what they're going to serve, and I'm going to cave the minute I get there.
So definitely eat beforehand, and that's going to help you bring a snack, or bring a dish, make a dish, or find a vegan buddy that likes to cook, and you guys can work off each other and help encourage each other. And
also, I've talked with you about travel. For me, it goes hand in hand with like tasting food from different cultures, and I can go down a list in my mind of like, oh my God, the Montreal, like I had this, and I'm not going to tell you what I ate there, and Iceland, I had this, won't tell you what I ate there, and it's just like this amazing experience.
Sure. There's an app called Happy Cow. So you can type in your location that you're going to be traveling to, and that'll give you a list of restaurants that have vegan friendly, or vegetarian if you want to be just vegetarian. They have vegetarian options too. So, for most people, maybe it is going to be a step. Maybe you stop eating, one thing and just cut that out of your diet. That's what I did. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to say that as a vegan, but if that's what it takes for people, then it is very difficult to just switch and cut it all out. That's I can understand. That's totally hard for anybody to do. So maybe it is just taking steps, and maybe you do one replacement, and then after a few months, and you're like, oh yeah, it's not so bad. It's second nature to me. Cut out, change something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just reduction versus going all in.
Right.
That's probably the better way to do it for most people, just because people naturally do not like change, and especially abrupt change.
Right.
But if it's something that could be systematic, then that's going to be a lot easier, and that's also an easier sell.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and maybe it'll take you 5 years to be comfortable being 100% vegan. And
right. And I think that 100% is the other part that, is like a hang up, right? It's almost like, when you go on a diet versus saying it's a lifestyle change, and for the rest of my life, because to think of like, oh, I'm never going to have a piece of chocolate cake ever again, or
that's not true, because you can get it from Eden Cafe.
Well, right, but I'm just talking diets, like when people can't stick to a diet, and then they fall back into something, right? Because they're thinking, oh, it's like you're withholding it from me, So,
well, especially if you're, dealing with some kind of emotional turmoil or stress or whatever, a lot of people end up emotionally eating, and you're going to go to things that taste good, that soothe you. Mm-hmm. And and if you're maybe going through something like that, and then you're trying to make the change simultaneously, then it's doubly difficult.
Right.
So
I definitely am forgiving to people that are trying to make a difference, and they can't do it. I think I remember one specific time I had stopped eating. I'm pretty sure I'd committed to being vegan, but we still had like salmon burgers in our freezer or something like that we had never eaten. And I was hungry, and I needed to eat something, and it's either going to get thrown out or I can eat it. And at first it was like, oh, that looks pretty good, and I it's going to get thrown out. So I ate it, and it was like I felt so sick from eating it, and it could have been both physical and mental. I don't know what it was, but I think the more you try it, the easier it will be. And there will be a point when you just drop off all the other stuff, and you're like, that's it. Especially, I really think you should combine it with education, whether it's going to lectures or groups, or watching YouTube videos, or listening to podcasts and stuff like that. It's just gonna reinforce the idea and the reason why you're doing it, and make it easier.
At the same time, is that maybe one of the reasons why? So one of the stereotypes about vegans is that it becomes like your whole life, like it's 100%
your identity,
right? And is that kind of part of it, where like So, for example,
you only hang out with vegans.
But you were looking for community to start, and then you're looking for education, and you're looking for people that will fit with, your dietary lifestyle, so you don't have to always be like bringing food and things like that. And then I don't know, did it slowly take over for you, or do you still have separation where you don't feel like it's your whole life?
That's a good question. I don't really think about it as it being my whole life. I know I think after we moved into Eli Fish, that was kind of like, well, not, I was still vegan, but I felt like I couldn't do anything about, what was going on around me, I guess. I don't know if that relates to your question. I did join a running group in Rochester, and, they were not vegan. It wasn't a vegan running group. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty involved in my work, so I don't really do a whole lot of other things with, I'm not going out every night with people and stuff like that. So,
right,
sure.
And your husband's vegan.
He's vegan,
but he was not, and you were not when you met. So,
yep.
Okay. Do you think now, let's say you were single, would you have to like be with someone who's vegan?
I kind of go back and forth on that. It depends. I mean, if it would probably depend on. That's a tough question.
Because then there would be like food in your fridge that would turn you off like all the time.
Right. Well, there's ways you can get around that. You can be like, yeah, if we go out to eat, you can get whatever you want, but in the house it's vegan food. I probably would not wouldn't want to have non-vegan food in the house.
Okay.
And I guess the thing about dating or marrying somebody who's not vegan, I think that's okay. And in a way, it can be a little bit helpful because you would be an influence on them. So
I feel like it would be like kissing a smoker, though, like really, it's like licking an ashtray, that expression would just be like, oh God, you have to use mouthwash.
I think
I could taste the, chicken. That would be traumatic for you, I would think.
When I was newly vegan, I thought it was so weird that people could be vegan and then be married to somebody who is not vegan. But I grew to know a lot of people who are married to non-vegans, and it's like, oh, all right, like, the other person's respectful of not like eating a burger right in their face, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it does have the benefit of, that person's going to start eating a lot more veggie burgers now because they're not going to go out to eat every night and get whatever they want. So
Sure.
So maybe it's like a sign of your growth, right? Because it sounds like when you first became vegan, like there was probably no way.
Right. Yes. I would definitely say I've changed since, so it's been about 7 years now. And I was pretty militant at first, and it was just because I didn't know how to express to people. It was a big change for me, and then to get other people to understand that, and then of course you want people to understand that about themselves too, and it's just really frustrating in trying to communicate with people because there's just a lot of emotion going on in your head when you're first really realizing it and really thinking about animals and suffering and stuff like that. And now I've had 7 years of it, that it's just mellowed out a little.
So has anybody ever come up to you and said, I really want to be vegan, can you help me? Like through the restaurant or just?
I don't think anybody's really said, I really want to be vegan, can you help me? But I think people in our restaurant, we've had people say, I'm not vegan, but I do like to eat vegan food, and it's really nice to have you around. And one of my sisters was trying to be vegan when I first watched that Gary Yourofsky video. And then she kind of went back to not being vegan after a little while. She started dating somebody who was a hunter and all that good stuff. But I have seen, my chef was not vegan when she came to us, and she is now, and she's pretty strict about that. She's very strict about that. So, I don't know. I don't think I'm not a very good advocate, I think, for veganism.
Well, I mean,
I think you are.
Yeah, you have a restaurant. I mean, you're living that lifestyle.
I am living the lifestyle. I just, I
That's
feel
all most of us could do.
Yeah.
And you're you're modeling for other people and you're giving them an opportunity. Do you think people at your restaurant, if you had to, and I know this is probably impossible to answer, but just maybe through frequency or getting to know some of your customers, that it's a lot of vegans or it's a lot of people who just want to try it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely a heavy mix right now, especially since the 4 years we were inside Eli Fish. We had, all these non-vegan people that would come in for Eli Fish, and then they'd be like, oh, let's try the cauliflower wings, or I'll have the nachos because that's something that, Eli Fish didn't carry. And so I think a lot of people did get to try that. And it's not necessarily because it was vegan, but maybe just because it sounded good. Mm-hmm. And our customers are, they're definitely a mix of vegans, vegetarians, and non-vegans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, to me, it sounds like having a restaurant now, it kind of replaces your old way of you don't have to give people, materials or even a talk, because you channel it into a restaurant, right, and you're giving them an option, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel like that to me sounds like a great form of activism. So I think you should give yourself some credit on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, are there other things you can think of that are like that just kind of, I guess, put it out into the world for people to discover themselves?
Well, there are a few animal sanctuaries nearby. There's one in Watkins Glen. There's one in Bergen. Not sure if they're in Bergen or Byron, but Mockingbird Farm is in that area. So I think when people visit those, that might be a way to open that up to people. Mm-hmm. And that could just be people that, want to see cute farm. I don't like saying farm animals. I usually say farmed animals.
Okay.
So
that's a great idea, though. So I have this visceral hatred towards zoos.
Yes.
And I never actually thought about visiting an animal sanctuary.
Yeah.
It never even crossed my mind, to be honest with you. So
yeah, they're cool, mm-hmm, and it's amazing to get up close and you stand right next to the cows and pet them and the sheep and goats and stuff, and it's a really cool place, and it's a lot of hard work that these people put into these sanctuaries. So I think they definitely need more support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great idea.
So I know this is a bit of a pivot, but and this is something that you and I definitely have in common, Tootsie not as much, but what about just the idea of pets? Because you think about pets, they're there for humans. Mm-hmm. And you could say you're giving them a good life, but they're ultimately there to kind of serve our purpose, right? And so it's something that, so dogs are bred, mm-hmm, so they can create more dogs so people can have companions. And now there's a big movement, I don't know if you've been aware of this, I'm sure you have, that of emotional support animals. Mm-hmm. And they can be very helpful to people. Mm-hmm. But again, you're still kind of using an animal for something other than, dogs were originally in packs and
right,
more like wolves and
right,
things like that.
Yeah.
So
that's understandable. Kind of got a couple things going on there. I think it's companionship for both the animals and the humans. I think specifically dogs and cats enjoy people. Definitely dogs do, and cats could care less if we're there or not for the most part. But
no, I disagree.
I know you're more of a cat person.
No, I like both. No, equal.
Yeah. So I think that's I definitely would not recommend people, especially backyard breeders. But there's so many animals that need homes in the shelters that, I'm a thumbs up for adoptions. And as far as support animals, those animals aren't killed after they're done. You know what I mean? That's pretty different than they're being taken care of very well, and I think they enjoy, for the most part, doing their jobs. I watched a documentary about guide dogs and how they're raised and trained and stuff, and the ones that not all of them, they don't force them to want to help the animal, and some dogs graduate to help people and they'll enjoy it, and the other ones don't graduate and they just go to another home. So I'm not against that.
Sure. But I'm sure you're probably against sports like horse racing.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And dog racing and that type of thing. Trying to think what other, kind of
those are
things are used for animals.
Yeah, which is funny because had that conversation about horse racing, and I will admit I'm a fan of the Kentucky Derby. So, you know, and there are people who are into horse racing that believe that animals are athletes. I mean, they enjoy the race. Mm-hmm. So,
and they get pretty good lives, and you know, especially for the males. I mean, what are the females called?
Mares?
No,
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, yes. But their life is like they get to race and get the glory of that, and then they get to be studs for the rest of their life.
Unless they break their leg.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, right. Which, when I see that, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because you know that, like, it's done.
Right.
So for you, is it that, or is it the breeding, or is it the racing, or what's the part of it?
It's the racing. It's the not thinking about, you know, what's going on. What did it take to get that horse there? How much, you know, did they get beat to train them to do that?
Okay.
Of course, they're kind of meant to be free. I mean, I guess my stance is just leave animals alone.
Right. And
you know, if there's an animal that really needs your help, there's shelters and stuff like that, then, you know, adopt them. But for the most part, it's just leave the animals alone.
Yeah, no,
guys.
you're making me think, because I've told you I'm against zoos and aquariums. I've definitely gone to the races, though. You know,
I've been to a couple races. Batavia has the Downs. I haven't been there in a long time, but I don't know. I didn't get a thrill out of it, but.
Probably didn't have any money on it either.
Yeah, that's true.
Otherwise, just watching horses run around in a
still,
circle.
I mean, there's so many other things you can gamble on. Gamble on, you know.
That's true.
How many beers your buddy can drink tonight or something like that. I don't know.
I wouldn't promote that either.
I guess. But
what is your, I guess, ideal vision for your lifetime? You know, this is like obviously an evolution, and it's growing and it's changing, and I don't think any of us think in our lifetime it's going to be 100% vegan. So, you know, what is kind of your goal, and do you think about it just in terms of like in this country or like the whole world?
Oh, I guess I mostly think about it in the U.S. I don't really think about other countries that much, and their eating habits. No, I guess I just would really like to see a lot more mainstream vegan options and education, I think, for people.
Right. And so we were talking about the New York City schools are now mandating vegan food on Fridays, I believe, which is funny that it's Friday because there's this whole thing, Meatless Mondays.
Right.
So if they had a marketing person, they would have made it Mondays.
And I think it's going along too with the whole Catholic thing.
Lent, yeah.
Oh,
I always thought that was so stupid that they had no meat on Fridays during Lent, but you could have fish. It's whatever, but
I don't know the rules, but yeah, incorporating little things like that as a start. I know it's not your ideal end goal, but as a start, just like Veganuary,
yes,
right?
Yeah. I think that's awesome that New York did that. It's a huge step, and that's that bring a lot of awareness to people, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are resistant to it, but do you know the saying, first they fight you, first they make fun of you, then first they fight you, then they make fun of you, and then they give in, or something like that. Do you remember? I don't know what it is, but so it's the first step, and I think that's awesome. You
were able to answer our questions and, not be pushy, and I think that's probably the key as far as saying, I'm going to have this restaurant, I'm going to live this lifestyle. Anybody who wants to come to me, I will lend a helping hand. And you can go on podcasts like this, and get your message across. But I definitely think that because you've kind of taken those avenues, it's not only better for the people you come into contact with, but it's really better for you as far as your overall mental health. Not to get to the point where you feel compelled to push something upon somebody, and so, which I honestly think is the more mature approach. Yes. Yeah. Well, and it takes practice and I think experiences to get there, to kind of evolve and figure out what's the best way to reach people. I mean, I think honestly the reason I was so pushy in the beginning was because that's what got through to me. So sometimes that does work for people. Yes. Sure. Yeah. Just like I said in the beginning, where some people just need to be hit over the head. Yep. But again, it's the difficult part is it's just so ingrained in our culture, and it's so change is difficult and it takes time.
It does, and I understand that, and I think it was difficult for me at first to see my family and friends not want to make that change, and I think that was just because I was already vegetarian, so it wasn't that hard for me to go vegan after that. But I definitely would support people in taking steps in reduction.
Well, I think you've given a lot of great advice today that hopefully will help a lot of people, maybe even me, try it again. And definitely down the line, you should think about this personal home Judy thing, because I think it would help a lot of people if you could just be right there over their shoulder. But no, you've given us a lot of great advice, and I think hopefully for the listeners and the viewers, if you feel like Judy's helped break a stereotype, if you got any great ideas from this interview of your own attempts at trying out being vegan, please drop a comment, and don't forget to like our YouTube channel and subscribe for more in-depth interviews.
Yeah, hit that bell notification for our upcoming videos. And if you don't agree, say something in the comments, and give us an opportunity to have a conversation, which I think what we're trying to do here.
So, thanks a lot for coming on, Judy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.